This meeting is being recorded.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us for the Soul of Service, a Black History Month interview series for the City of Hartford. I'm Karen Taylor. I'm the Director of Equity and Opportunity, and I am really very honored to be joined by Jonathan Harding, who is our new Corporation Counsel for the City of Hartford. Jonathan, how are you?
Good afternoon. I'm doing well, thanks.
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that asking this time of leaders, all the scheduling, coordinating, it's big because I know that you all have stacks of things to do on your desk and many places that you could be. But our hope with this series is that we will be able to allow people to get to know you better as a leader, to be able to elevate the work that you're doing, and to know kind of like what are the motivations and who is the human behind all of the great work and servant leadership that's being done here. So thank you again for joining us.
Welcome.
Awesome. So Jonathan, just to get started, can you tell us a little bit about like your hometown, your family of origin? How did you get to Hartford? How did your family get to Hartford? We would love to know that.
Sure. Um, so Hartford is my hometown, but I did not grow up in Hartford. Um, I've been here for, I think it'll be 16 years this fall. But I was actually born in Bridgeport, Connecticut. But I more or less grew up in Naugatuck, Connecticut. Um, yep, I grew up in the Valley. I then lived in Boston for 5 years, or just outside of Boston, and then I came to Hartford for law school. Came back to Connecticut and moved to Hartford for law school, and I never left.
Would that be the Yukon Law School?
It would be. It would be.
Okay, just checking. That's awesome. And your family originally from Connecticut also?
My dad grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Um, my mom's actually from Trinidad, and she moved here. She moved to the States when she was like in high school, I want to think, and the whole family relocated up from Trinidad. And then she lived in Bridgeport, from high school on until we relocated as a family to Naugatuck.
Oh, cool. I love doing these interviews because you learn all these other little like nuances about people and identity. So I actually am first generation American. My mother's St. Lucian and my father's Bahamian, right? So um, definitely resonates. It impacts the way that the way that you grow up, the food that you eat, the music that you
Sure,
listen to, like
sure.
all of the things. So did not know that about you, but happy to have learned it. So tell me, how long have you worked for the city of Hartford and what attracted you to this position? And tell us a little bit about where you were before, because I know that you're pretty
Yeah.
new. Mhm.
So I've been here since January 1st, essentially. So I'm very new, learning a lot every day. And uh, what attracted me to the position, I mean, the mayor was gracious enough to ask me if I would consider coming on as corporation counsel and nominated me for that role. I'm extremely grateful to the mayor for that. Um, and it was an opportunity I could not pass up. I mean, I lived in the city for 15 going on 16 years now. I've become really involved in town, and it certainly feels like this is the place I was meant to live. And so I couldn't pass up an opportunity to serve Hartford in this capacity. But before this, I had another job that I loved. I was the associate general counsel to the office of the governor, working in Governor Lamont's administration for the last year, which was an awesome gig. Loved it. And then prior to that, I was lucky to have a decade long career for another job that I loved at the office of the attorney general for 10 years. And I started that job about a year after law school. So that's sort of like my professional track. After law school, I was at the AG's office doing a bunch of different things. Anything from collections, administrative appeals, child support work. I had done some claims commissioner stuff. I got to do a lot of really cool stuff. And then I changed departments to environment. I was representing Department of Agriculture and Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. And that spanned everything from environmental enforcement work to animal rescue cases, regulatory review for agricultural matters. So a lot of really interesting things I got to try my hand at the AG's office, which was great.
It's a broad spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you always see yourself practicing law?
I think so. I mean, I wanted to be an attorney from a pretty young age. I think I never really appreciated what it meant. But later in life, I had a mentor that I met through my mother when she was working as a paraprofessional in the Waterbury school system. Maurice Mosley, who went on to become a judge. Judge Maurice Mosley was a mentor of mine who had his own small practice in Waterbury. He was also a legislator in Waterbury, doing a lot of great things. And I really looked up to him for carving out a place for himself and sort of making a name for himself in Waterbury and beyond. And I think that sort of solidified my interest in becoming an attorney.
Wow. What other types of jobs have you had throughout your life, or has it mostly
Oh,
been
man.
legal profession work,
No,
like from
no.
college to, like what other sorts of things have you done?
Yeah, I mean, after I graduated from law school, I thought I was going to get into the financial services sector for a while, which I thought would help prepare me for like business law, once I eventually went on to law school, because I was planning on
Mhm.
going to law school. But selling financial products was not my thing. I learned very quickly, and then I had a job um, working in a for-profit subsidized housing facility in East Boston, which was very interesting. I learned a great deal about subsidized housing system, but also, sort of the pros and cons of the for-profit model. But I've done a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, I've worked at a small amusement park, quasi amusement park, when I was a
You
kid. Yeah,
as a kid? Oh,
yeah,
that's cool.
yeah. I was in high school. Summers in high school. I'd say like one of my most fun jobs, other than this one, is I spent a couple summers working as a park ranger, which was an awesome summer gig. I think I was making like 16 bucks an hour during the summers to like drive through the woods on ATVs and like clear trails with chainsaws and operate like tractors and dump trucks and stuff. That was a very cool job for a 20-year-old.
Wow. I love it. But people think that these jobs that lead up to these career paths are not important, but those soft skills that you get,
Sure,
right? About like working with other people,
sure.
about, maybe, the enjoying nature part, like who knows what other skills you may need to pull on later on in life. And so even, working at the quasi amusement park, in a meeting we had earlier today, you were like, oh my goodness, like accuracy matters. Like this has to be perfect. And I'm sure
Yeah.
that at Quasi, you had to make sure that those people were buckled in at the
Yeah,
meeting.
sure. Precision matters with some activities for sure. Yeah.
Definitely. So, shout out to all the jobs that develop soft skills. I spent a lot of time waiting tables, and that has been probably one of the best professional development tools that I draw upon, right? Just interacting with different types of people. How do you meet the needs of different types of people? So, soft skill jobs
Yeah.
absolutely can help prepare you for the future. And thinking about the future, how do you feel that your work is either making or contributing to Black history or Black
So
futures in the city of Hartford?
sure. I mean, I've had a lot of time to think about that. And I still don't know what the answer is. I think it's hard when you're in the moment to fully appreciate impact. Undoubtedly, the work that we do in the Office of the Corporation Counsel and my entire staff affects the entire city. It affects, the functioning of our officers and departments. And, as a result, affects, the citizens of the city and in particular people of color. Um, in terms of what will be said about that work 10 or 15 or 20 years from now, I don't know. And I guess when I struggle with answering that question, but I think we probably, and I don't know, I'll go back and watch some of the other videos and see how other people maybe have addressed that question, because it's a tough one. I think of like, makes me think of my dad who um, served in the Vietnam War. His father, my grandfather, served in World War II. And, for years, I didn't know much about that service. And, I'd always see there was like he had this book from basic training and like a couple little medals and some boxes, but he never really talked about those things. And it wasn't until I was older and could learn to read, obviously, and appreciate what was in those boxes, but I realized later in life that my father was decorated as a Bronze Star recipient for his service in Vietnam. And I read the citation letter about, how he received that Bronze Star. And I was like, holy smokes, like my dad's like, he's a hero, he's an American hero. But he never really talked about it. When I say these things were not like prominently displayed in our home, they were like in a pile with other books, like in the basement, And so I think it's hard sometimes, I think, for African Americans in particular, maybe not, I don't know, I can only see it from my perspective, but to sometimes realize, when we're contributing in the moment. But I think it's important for us in particular to remind each other and remind ourselves, of our contributions, to American history. So again, I'm dodging your question by offering an anecdote that explains why we're not good at explaining how we contribute to, African American history.
I'm like, in true attorney fashion, I feel as though you answered my question, but you have not answered. I love that though, because absolutely, Black history is American history, and we'll be evaluated not in real time, and I think that for certain folks can look at you coming in corporation counsel, you are at the beginning of a new administration. So that in and of itself, you're absolutely making history in this particular administration in your role, but the depth and the ripple effect of your impact will be felt, down the line. And maybe somebody will be looking in a pile of books like, dang, Jonathan didn't even say anything about this stuff in here. Look at all these citations and medals and acknowledgments that he has. Um, I do completely agree with that in terms of Black history being American history. And oftentimes we don't even know the extent to which we're making an impact or others, right?
Yeah.
And we're living through a lot of like historical moments right
Yeah.
now. So there will definitely be something about some of us in some of these books that are, that are coming down the pike. Awesome. So, what do you find to be most meaningful about your position in the city of Hartford and about serving ultimately Hartford residents through your work here?
Yeah. I mean, I think public service is really important. Um, and I think participating in your community is really important. And I think for me, I've always taken the position that I should try to take on as many roles to affect the way our society operates as I can. I know there were times I would joke with my dad, why don't you like go down to town hall and see if you can get on some boards or commissions or something. It's like, but the reality is it's really important. And I think to always push to try and make the biggest impact, for me is really meaningful. I think it's hard to say which part is most important, but I think the work of this office really affects, you know, you know, the entire spectrum of issues that come up in the city. Um, and, as well as, affecting not only our residents, but also our employees, our staff, our boards, our commissions. So I think all of it is critically important. I think what I love most is just getting to take that next step of being, for me, being able to take that next step of being more intimately involved in everything that happens, in my hometown. I think every part of that is rewarding. So I can't pick any one thing that's most rewarding because I honestly think every part of it is really meaningful to me. I mean, I previously served on the Planning and Zoning Commission here in Hartford,
Oh,
and I
nice.
thought it was so cool getting to play an active role in portions and bits of development in our city. When you drive past an empty lot that you like pass, an application for some development project, and then 3, 4, 5 years later, you see ground being broken and scaffolding going up and cranes rolling in, to see that being see that vision, someone's vision come to fruition, and know that you played a part in that is like really rewarding. And so for me, being able to play a broader role in a lot of those cool things that are happening in the city is something I'm super proud of and looking forward to doing, for the rest of my tenure here.
Awesome. And I think that it's so great that you initially served on a board in I feel like there's someone else in this administration who might be the deputy chief of staff who also served on a board or commission. So this is a plug for boards and commissions for the city of Hartford. It's a great opportunity for you to be able to have an impact on your city, and also preparing you maybe in the future to do other things, right? That might be tied to what you love to do professionally as well.
Yeah, I was, participate, and that's one of the things that I loved about Hartford. I mean, when I was younger, I was like, I'm going to move to New York City one day. Then I lived in Boston. I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then I moved back to Connecticut, and I was like, oh, Hartford's really like small. And it's come to be one of the things that like I love about the city of Hartford is that like I can actually participate in the city of Hartford, as an ordinary person.
Yeah.
I think if I had continued to live in Boston, I never could have, participated in a city like that the way I can participate here, and all the things that have flown from that participation. So, yeah.
I don't know. Something tells me you would have risen to the top in Beantown.
I highly.
Boss Town. Awesome. So what ties and connections do you have to the city of Hartford? You said you've lived here for 16?
Yeah, I think it'll be 16 years this summer, something like that. Yeah.
Tell me, why is Hartford meaningful to you? What are like your favorite places in the city? Why is Hartford meaningful? What ties and connections do you have? Do you have any favorite places?
I mean, I've developed a lot of ties and connections in the city. I've made friendships and careers. I own a home in the city of Hartford. I raised my family here, my wife, my 2 kids. I've got a 5-year-old that's a Noah Webster. And my youngest, who's a year and a half, is still in daycare in town, but he'll hopefully soon be at Noah Webster in a couple of years himself. But again, just getting involved. I'd served on the school governance council for Noah Webster before my oldest was even old enough to attend school. I had the opportunity to do that, and it was great. I mean, even before having a child in the school system here, I got to see a little bit of how that worked. And over the time, I've made some incredible friendships and relationships here. Probably too many to name, but and I'm not going to name names because that's dangerous. I'm not doing
and you will miss someone, and someone will watch the record, and it will be memorialized in a recording that you did not say. Yeah, no, that's safe.
But places that I love, it's tough. I think I just love historic places in Hartford. Hartford's lost a lot of historic places over the years. Buildings, neighborhoods, entire neighborhoods. But I enjoy going to the Wadsworth. I enjoy places that sort of capture some of Hartford's history. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a favorite location. It's probably also dangerous because then someone's going to feel like their location should have been named. But yeah, I'll think more on that.
Awesome. Wadsworth, also one of my favorite places. And I want to get the name right. It's not the Connecticut Historical Society anymore. It is the Connecticut Museum for Culture and History or something.
Yeah,
I so. I hope that's also one. I also do love to go to places that have, Hartford history, significance. And we have great parks, a great park system.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that the same person who designed Central Park also designed many of our parks here in the city of Hartford, which is like.
I mean, we have one of the most, I'm going to say we have the most incredible park system in the United States. There, I said it.
Ooh, you heard it here.
Yeah.
That's a big claim. That's a big claim. Okay. You stand by that.
I
Have you
stand
thought
by that.
about California? You thought about places like that? And you still said us, right?
For
Okay.
city parks,
For,
absolutely.
for city parks, got it. Yep.
We don't have the Grand Canyon or anything. I mean, there
Yeah,
are national parks that we probably,
that we just can't. Yeah.
yeah,
But for city parks, for sure.
yeah.
I'll be sure to let Cecilia know that our director of sustainability, she was bragging on her favorite spaces yesterday. And so I'm sure I'm sure she'll like to hear that. So additionally, we want for these interviews to really kind of inspire people who are watching to get to know the people who are making history here at the City of Hartford, but also to for them to be able to see themselves in you and to be able to say, oh, like I never really considered municipal government as a place where I could really bring my talents, right? And I think that a lot of times you'll have people who come out of neighborhoods, I feel like Bridgeport and Hartford, oftentimes you hear Bridgeport, Hartford, and New Haven kind of lumped into like one conversation, right? Um, so people who are from urban centers thinking, oh, well, when I get my law degree, I want to go and practice entertainment law. Tell me what you would say to someone about considering bringing their talent, their professional talents to municipal government, or someone who's interested in entering the profession of law.
Yeah. I think in terms of participating in municipal government, I don't know if they're different. They're just different for me. Whether you're participating in your hometown or in another town, I think the work is challenging. It is interesting. You will not be short of interesting new fact patterns, and I think there's a really cool problem solving element to municipal government. Um, and there are challenges that are usually pretty relatable, right? You see the effect that a legal battle regarding development can have an effect on a city, or anything, you name it. You can see the effects of those problems and how they affect real people. They're not as abstract sometimes as they are for like national government issues. I think municipal government issues are a lot more relatable. Um, so if you'd like work that you can see how it affects the world around you more directly, then I think municipal work is great. And again, I worked for the state for many years and I loved doing it. But, again, going back to the part where this is my hometown, I get to see that every day and how it affects communities and friends and neighbors. Um, over time, I'm sure I'll get more calls from neighbors with, their insights, which is fantastic. Um, but it's good because you feel and you see those impacts in your own backyard. But I think just purely from a work perspective, I just think the work's really interesting. Um, and you can see the effects.
Awesome. Something, anything that I didn't ask you here today that you feel like you are just can't wait to share?
Well, because I did skip the second part of that question about going to law school,
Okay.
about taking up a profession in the law. And I think the answer is somewhat similar in that, becoming a lawyer, you can make a decision to become a lawyer later in life. You can study more or less whatever you want in college and still become an attorney. And you don't have to feel locked in. And then even after you go to law school, you're still not locked in because you can kind of do a lot of stuff with your JD. You can practice. You don't have to practice. I think having your law degree is very helpful in any leadership capacity, even if you're not practicing. I mean, I have a lot of friends of mine from law school that decided not to practice, and they're doing all sorts of other things. And I think having that educational experience is still very valuable to employers, and I think it's very valuable from just sort of a research problem solving perspective.
Yeah.
So I think for some young folks, and I think it's probably always been true, but I find that's even truer now when school is so expensive, is that you kind of have to figure out what you want to do with your life for certain careers at like 12 years old. Otherwise, it feels like that career track is like out of reach if you don't like take the right prerequisites and build the right skills and take the right course of study. Whereas I think being a lawyer, you can kind of freewheel it for a while and figure it out later. It gives you that flexibility. So So I would encourage anyone who's not sure what they want to do, but know that they want to make the maximum impact and find careers that are challenging, go get your JD.
That's a fresh and interesting perspective that I've never heard about freewheeling and JD. Like, oh, a
Yeah,
terminal degree, you can just
yeah,
freewheel it. But that's a really important perspective too, because sometimes people think that if you study for a certain thing, that the outcome is ultimately this, right? And I think that from what I know of my friends who are attorneys, it's like law school teaches you how to think in a particular type of way around problem solving and looking at things from different perspectives,
yeah.
right? And so that skill, that critical thinking, that reasoning skill is highly useful in many other professions and settings. So I
Yeah.
like it. I like it. I like it. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan, for talking with us this afternoon. Um, really, really honored to have you at the City of Hartford. We're glad you didn't go the corporate attorney track. We're glad you brought your talents to South Beach, i.e. Hartford. You can hear my windows open here in my office. Right? So HFD hard at work in the background, but we're really happy that you decided to come to Hartford to make Hartford your home, not just professionally, but also personally in that regard, because, you know, especially for people who are getting these sort of terminal degrees where you have the ability to make, I mean, I have some friends who are in private practice and who are at firms and we know that you have a range of options, right? And so for you to be here just really demonstrates how much you do have a heart for servant leadership. And we appreciate you being here. And we cannot wait to see all the things that you do during your tenure here at the City of Hartford.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me to do this. This
I
is
can't
fun.
hear right now why.
Can you hear me? No.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Oh, that was my speaker.
Okay. Yeah, but thank you for inviting me to do this. This has been a lot of fun, and I'm pretty new, so we'll revisit this conversation in a couple of years. I'm sure I'll have some new insights.
I want to see your medals in the books in a couple of years, right? I want to see that. So thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation with us. And tomorrow, I believe we have our two final interviews, Sharice Snipes and Courtney Jackson. Sorry, his last name was escaping me. So thank you so much for being here for our Soul of Service Black History Month City of Hartford interview series. We appreciate you and we wish you the best of luck during your tenure here.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much.